pay to win, a pay to win, pay to win, pay to win game, pay to win. Both of them are simply different degrees of pay to win. Very pay to win, moderately pay to win. People say the game is pay to progress or pay for convenience. Things that would stop you from swiping infinitely, an absolute pay to win clown fiesta. The biggest number I've heard, by the way, was 1 versus 15. Good MMO games are very rare to come by these days, and a lot of the MMO players have been waiting for one for many years at this point. Aion 2 is a game that undeniably looks good, but being a typical Korean MMO, it raises big concerns in regards to its monetization and whether or not it's worth investing your time into it as a complete free-to-play or a low-spender player. The game has been out in Korea and Taiwan since November 2025, and with the Western Steam release being just around the corner in September, I decided to share my 5 cents on it, what I think and how I feel about it, and how I'm planning to approach the game, if at all. Oh yeah, an important disclosure. I have played on Taiwan for like 3 hours total, so I'm not like an Aion savvy guy. Let's talk about pay to win. Every time a game like this comes out, there's tons of discussion online about whether or not it's pay to win. And in my opinion, the vast majority of these conversations are almost entirely pointless, because they're trying to portray the concept of pay to win as a binary switch, as if it only has two positions, yes or no. Additionally, people have a very hard time defining what winning means. As for pay to win, Aion 2 is undeniably a pay to win game. You can perform some mental gymnastics and try to differentiate between pay to win and pay for convenience or pay to progress faster. This is pretty wild though. All of these nuanced branches are just fake excuses that people use to make themselves feel better about playing a pay to win game, which honestly I don't even blame them too much for, because there are truly almost no good MMO games right now, and if you want to play one, you kinda have to accept certain compromises. As for winning, there are a lot of people who are trying to provide a very specific, narrow definition for winning, such as for example saying that winning can only happen in PvP, which we'll talk about later in the video. But to me, it's much simpler than that. I am winning if I manage to put myself in a position where I'm having a better experience with the game all around. Whether it's combat, grinding mobs, killing bosses, PvP, light skilling, it can be literally anything that I'm interested in doing, or anything that the game expects from me and requires me to do. Any type of content that falls under the focus of the game. And well, in case of MMOs, it is the combat system, so anything related to combat. If I have a better experience at it, I am winning. If you have a worse experience at it, you are losing. That's why pay for convenience or pay to progress faster do not exist as standalone definitions, and people are only using them to disguise and justify pay to win. Both of them are simply different degrees of pay to win. When the game is very pay to win, people say the game is pay to win. When the game is moderately pay to win, people say the game is pay to progress or pay for convenience. But Fonk, if every game is pay to win, should we not play anything at all? Well, no. Because in reality, what matters is not if something is pay to win or not, but the degree of pay to win in it. How strong is it? How impactful is it? How does it affect the game and the players? Think of it as a spectrum from imaginary zero to imaginary infinity. Every game falls somewhere on the spectrum, and every player has a subjective threshold or a critical point which indicates how much of pay-to-win design they are willing to tolerate. The formula for success is simple. As a developer, you want your game to be positioned low enough on the spectrum such that for a substantial number of people, this level of pay-to-win will be negligible and tolerable, and then all these people will play your game. This is why, for example, a very popular argument of saying, "But WoW is pay-to-win too," doesn't work even nearly as well as people would like for it to work. There is a reason why, despite being pay to win, WoW is massively more successful and popular than games like Lost Ark, Diablo Immortal, BDO, Throne and Liberty, and likely Aion 2. And the reason is because pay to win elements of WoW are smaller, less impactful, and easier to tolerate. In general, a good way to analyze pay to win in a particular game is to ask questions such as, is pay to win capped or unlimited? Can I spend as much money as I want, or is there a maximum amount of swiping after which it either hard stops or the efficiency of it goes down dramatically? If I choose to play the game without spending, how well does my time investment convert into real money, even if indirectly? How many dollars would I need to spend in order to skip 1 hour of grind and have the same amount of progression? And by answering these questions, you can get a decent idea about the state of pay to win. If pay to win is capped and it is expensive, it's the best case scenario, because it means that more people will be likely to choose grind over swiping, and even those who choose swiping would hit a hard cap soon and will have to go back to grinding. The worst case scenario is uncapped pay to win that is simultaneously cheap. If you only need to swipe $5 to skip 1 hour of grind, and you can do it as many times as you want, you would literally be making better progress at the game if you didn't play it almost at all and instead worked extra hours. What are the answers to these questions for Aion, we are yet to see with our own eyes, because as of now, there are plenty of people on social media who have played Korea or Taiwan in both camps, defending the game and saying that there are many things that would stop you from swiping infinitely, and also others who accuse the game of being an absolute pay-to-win clown fiesta and referring to clips where one player destroys multiple low spenders at once in PvP, essentially 1vxing them. The biggest number I've heard, by the way, was 1 versus 15, which honestly, if that is true, the game is just cringe. So I hope it's not true. I always prefer to make judgment based on my personal experience, so I'll have to play the game myself to be able to do it. But more on this later. Looking at Aion 2 monetization, I can immediately see something that will rub many players the wrong way. Aion 2 is a game that offers a borderline mandatory monthly subscription, which costs $15 US. But at the same time, the game has additional pay-to-win elements outside of the subscription. Aion 2 whales will be able to directly convert additional money spent on the game into in-game currency used for player-to-player trading. Whether it's buying gear from the market directly or buying materials to enhance the gear, the difference is semantical, it doesn't matter in practice, and it all boils down to the same thing. You have to pay $15 a month to get access to a game where a whale will still have a degree of gear advantage over you. Now, some people might try to call me out on saying that Aion 2 monthly subscription is borderline mandatory. So let me explain myself. I really don't want to get ahead of the train and definitively state something before I can see it and touch it with my own hands and eyes. However, it's 2026, it's the internet era. There are plenty of people who play Aion 2 on Taiwan and Korea, and inevitably you do end up hearing some info and opinions. I do know that there is a very small number of content creators and players who say that Aion's marketplace is not important for enjoying the game, and playing without a sub is totally possible. At the same time, I see an overwhelming amount of opinions stating the opposite, so I just can't help but feel like it's copium. Maybe those people just know the game so much better than everyone else, and they will teach us all the ways of how to dominate Aion as free to play, but until that happens, I am operating under the assumption that Aion's marketplace is going to be quite instrumental to most players, therefore making subscription borderline mandatory. Hence, I call it exactly that. Another common misconception that I want to debunk is an absolutely twisted logic of saying Aion 2 is a PvE focused game, and PvP is not very important nor mandatory to participate in, so why even talk about pay to win? Which basically implies that only a PvP game can be pay to win. And honestly, this is a pretty weird way of thinking, because it implies that you can only acknowledge one's superiority over yourself if they come over and physically punch you in the face. In reality, the vast majority of competition in life happens indirectly, and does not involve fighting, dueling, or anything like that. You simply live inside of the social group, interact with your environment and other people in a non-hostile way, and earn status, money, and prestige. Jeff Bezos is a very successful man whom many are jealous of, and I don't think he often fistfights people. The concept of competitive PvE is one of the most slept on concepts in the entire MMO genre. At some point, you're doing raids and fighting bosses just to get a better parse on the DPS meter. When a new raid comes out, there is a lot of prestige in being able to get one of the first clears on your server or region. And even on a smaller scale, when you're playing with friends, do you not ever try to outperform them in a group boss fight just for fun? Outside of MMOs, think of the speedrun communities for single-player games. There are no other players in the game at all, except for the speedrunner themselves, and yet it's one of the most competitive forms of gaming you can think of. Competitive PvE is a thing, and it's a huge thing. From doing more damage to being able to kill a specific boss, to carrying someone through a fight and farming aura for literally just being able to do it, if this can be influenced by swiping, it absolutely makes the game more pay to win, and it's not even a debate. And just to show something that reinforces my logic, I'm gonna use Lost Ark here, which I formerly played big time. And not only I played it a lot, but I was also pretty good at it, holding the #1 parses in NAEU for several highest difficulty rates at some point, so I understand the game really well. In case if you don't know, Lost Ark is a purely PvE game, to the point where recently every meaningful form of PvP was completely removed from the game, and it currently has none. So unlike Aion 2, which has arguably unimportant PvP, Lost Ark does not have any PvP whatsoever. The game is incredibly pay to win though, and you can see what happened to it. 1.3 million then goes down off a cliff and boom, crashes. Nobody ever quit Lost Ark because some whale came over and killed them. Even back when PvP was still a thing, the main PvP game mode was an equalized arena, and GVG or PvP islands were dead content for ages. Nobody quit Lost Ark because they couldn't win a PvP match against a whale. And to be fair, pay to win is not the only issue with the game, but a very large number of people ended up quitting the game due to pay to win related reasons in a purely PvE game. And I think every MMO player heard an overwhelming amount of conversation around Lost Ark being pay to win in, again, a purely PvE environment. There's one more topic I want to discuss that doesn't help Aion's case. It's the fact that the game has a delayed Western release. As someone who played Lost Ark for many thousands of hours, which operates on the same delayed release model, I know really well what it means for the game and for the players. Theoretically, a huge part of an appeal of an MMO is the sense of discovery when interacting with new content. And that's how it works for Koreans in these Korean MMOs. They get this experience. In case of delayed Western releases though, the product basically arrives to you in a solved state. Every build and dungeon, every option in progression routes, every piece of meta has already been discovered in Korea. When the game launches for us, you will see that the vast majority of players will be watching guides and listening to content creators who tell them what to do for almost every single step of the way, starting from which classes is better to play for XYZ activity, and all the way to 200 IQ strategies on how to flip the market early and make tons of money off of other people who are new and don't know the tricks. When you will be trying to find a group for a dungeon, you will see that 99% of party finder groups will require you to watch the guide. When a new raid comes out, if you don't watch the guide and you don't start clearing it from week 1 in the most efficient manner, you will be falling behind the curve and others won't be willing to play with you anymore because nobody wants to waste their time because they need to clear this dungeon 13 times on 7 different alt characters. You will be expected to play meta classes, wear meta gear, use meta builds, because once again, long before the content is available to us, Western players, it has already been solved in Korea. This is the unfortunate reality of delayed release Eastern games. So, how am I going to approach the release of Aion 2? Will I even play the game at all? So far, it's not looking too good. You have to pay $15 at a minimum to have a meaningful experience anywhere past class selection and getting to max level. On top of that, the game is pay to win. On top of that, there's early access for people who buy the premium edition. And on top of that, the delayed release model, where people who played in Korea will have an immense advantage over you. However, I will not be overly dramatic, and I will 100% play the game on release, as probably most of you as well. Regardless if the game is good or bad, there are so few good MMOs, and the yearning is so strong, that let's be real, most of us will play Aion 2 when it comes out, regardless if you love the game or if you hate the game. This is the reason why these games have these massive player count numbers on release. And let's be honest, the experience of a new MMO launch is always fun. If the game is not outright dog shit, which Aion 2 is definitely a decent game mechanically speaking, playing it on release for anywhere from a few weeks to a few months is almost guaranteed to be fun. I'm personally planning to hop on the game and play fully free to play to start with, $0 spent. As time goes on, I'll be able to make a better judgment of the game based on my own experience, and I might even pay for 1 month of the sub eventually to see how it transforms the game, make an even better judgment as well as content for my YouTube channel, and depending on how well it all goes, I will either stick to the game or drop it. I don't know about you guys, but to me it seems like a much more reasonable approach than either completely glazing the game or completely dismissing the game before it's even out. Do I have a lot of skepticism about the game and the company? Yes, I do. Do I think Aion 2 will be a long-term successful project? Not necessarily, but I am open-minded and I couldn't be happier for getting proven wrong. Because believe it or not, people who are criticizing games don't do it because they hate games. They do it because they love games and want these games to be good. I am, just like the rest of us, looking for a good MMO to settle down in, and as long as I'm still active, I will always criticize bad game design and monetization practices in an attempt to cultivate the demand for better games. If you enjoyed watching this video, consider subscribing and leaving a like and a comment. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.